Hello students, welcome to the pole science of class 11 arts, and today we will start a new topic from chapter number 1 of part A, that is chapter number 1, which is the constitution. And from that chapter we will start understanding about the Dpsp, which is the directive principles of state policy. So about the directive principles of state policy, in simple words, these directive principles of state policy are the rules and regulations according to which the government rules our country. That means, as we know that the state government or the central government doesn't have unlimited powers. They have limited powers, and all of these are mentioned in the Constitution of India under the head of directive principles of state policy. Just like part 3 consists of fundamental rights, part 4A in the Indian Constitution consists of the fundamental duties, like that only another part is there which reflects or which tells about the directive principles of state policy, according to which these are the principles, these are the direction, these are the directive principles of state policy according to which a government should rule the country. They cannot rule the country according to their own wish. For ruling the country, certain rules and regulations are there which they have to abide by, and these they are following through the directive principles of state policy which are mentioned in the Constitution of India. So in simple words, it is the rules and regulations according to which a government rules the country. After that, knowing about the existence of directive principles of state policy, the Constitution of India is the supreme law of India. It came into existence on 26th January 1950. So related to the Constitution of India, one chapter was there in class 9. And according to that chapter, the Constitution of India was ready by 26th of November 1949, but it was enacted actually on 26th November 1949, but it took around 2 months more. 2 months means exactly 2 months from the date of its enactment, that is from 26th November 1949 to 2 months ahead, that is 26th January 1950, it came into effect. That means the Constitution was ready by 26th November 1949, but it came into effect on 26th January 1950. So this day is also known as the Republic Day of India. That means the day when the Constitution came into effect, that day came to be known as Republic Day from that particular year, and the date was 26th of January 1950. About the Constitution, a brief introduction is given that it is the longest written constitution of any sovereign country in the world. This we have read under the head of fundamental rights and fundamental duties also. Why it is, one question was given in the assignment about why the Constitution of India is termed as the longest written constitution. So the answer was it was the longest written constitution anywhere in the world because it contains 444 articles, under which there are 12 schedules, 22 parts and 101 amendments. Actually, as per the updated information till date, if we take the year 2020, then you may say that up to 2020 there are 104 amendments that have been done. So you will write here, in place of 101 amendments, you will write here 104 amendments. Clear? This is the updated information. After that, just like fundamental rights comes under part 3, then fundamental duties comes under part 4A. So we have to see now under which part and under which article the directive principles of state policy comes. It comes under part 4 and the article between 36 to 51. That means continuously from Article 36 to 51 covers the directive principle of state policy, and that is under part 4. Remember this. Part 4 of Article 36 to 51 continuously deals with the various directive principles of state policy. Clear? After that, now come to the part of history, that means how it was actually encouraged to have directive principles of state policy in our country, from where it was actually brought. So, regarding the history of directive principles of state policy, the concept of directive principles of state policy was borrowed from the Irish constitution, that means the constitution of Ireland. If you have read about the constitution in class 9, you must have remembered the thing that the constitution of India is the borrowed constitution. That means many good things are borrowed from many countries. In order to understand it better, this is actually the sources of Indian constitution. That means if we tell that Indian constitution is a borrowed constitution, so we need to know from where are the things that are actually borrowed, from which country actually. So some good things have been borrowed from the British constitution also, from Wilmar also, from the American constitution also, like the Bill of Rights was carried from there, then from Soviet constitution, then Canadian constitution, so South African constitution, then you can see here Irish constitution. From Irish constitution we borrowed the example of, or the idea of, including directive principle of state policy in our own country. Then it was also inspired by Government of India Act 1935. Then some of our framers who were actually involved in the framing of the institution, they were inspired by all these constitution that were already made in different parts of the world, and after getting inspiration from all this, they borrowed some of the good things from all these constitutions. So regarding directive principles of state policy, this was actually carried over, this example was carried over by the Irish constitution. Clear? So the concept of directive principles of state policy was borrowed from the Irish constitution. The makers of this constitution of India were influenced by the Irish nationalist movement. As I have told you earlier that the framers who were involved in the designing or preparation of Indian constitution, they were very much inspired by many countries' constitution. And regarding the inclusion of directive principles of state policy, the framers were actually very much inspired by the constitution of Ireland, or the Irish constitution, where the directive principles of state policy had many good things or advantages, which the framers actually believed that if they include in the constitution of India, this might work for the welfare and development of the people also and of the country also. So what are there, how they were inspired, let us look there. The principles have been inspired by the directive principles given in the constitution of Ireland, and also by the principles of Gandhism, and relate to social justice, economic welfare, foreign policy, and legal and administrative matters. So what are the good things actually? I have told you earlier that our framers were inspired by many good ideas, that were some of the points that were good in the American constitution, some of the points that were good in the Soviet constitution. Likewise, they have collected many good things from different constitutions. That's why our constitution is known as the borrowed constitution. So in case of the Irish constitution, from where the directive principle of state policy was included, the things that they were inspired by the directive principles of state policy of the Irish constitution was the social justice that was there in their directive principles, then economic welfare, foreign policy was there, and inclusion of legal as well as administrative matters were also there. So all these points were very inspiring for the framers of our Indian constitution, and they thought that if they include the directive principle of state policy, this might actually work for the betterment of what? All these points, whatever the mentioned points are there, starting from social justice. One more point was there, the principle of Gandhism, social justice, then economic welfare, then good foreign policy, and legal and administrative matters also. So all this will work under the directive principles of state policy. That's why, that was the reason that this directive principle of state policy was included in the Indian Constitution. Clear? So with this we will wind up here only. So today we have read about the definition of the directive principle of state policy, and along with that we have also read about under which part of the Indian Constitution we can find the directive principle of state policy, and this is under part 4 of article 36 to 51. And after that we read about the history of directive principle of state policy. That means from where the framers of the Indian Constitution included this directive principle of state policy. And we came to know that this directive principle of state policy was actually borrowed from the Irish Constitution. With regard to that, we also read about the various sources of Indian Constitution. If we tell that India is a borrowed constitution, then how? Here we can see that many constitutions are there, and all these constitutions from where many good things were collected and included in our Indian Constitution. These are the sources, starting from British Constitution, Weimar Constitution, then you can find American Constitution, Soviet Constitution is there, Canadian Constitution, then South African Constitution, then Government of India Act, Irish Constitution is there as you can see, and Australian Constitution. So these are the sources from which many good things were included in our Constitution. So regarding that, we have learned that this Dpsp, that is also called Directive Principles of State Policy, was taken from the Irish Constitution. And what are the things why the Directive Principle of State Policy was actually included? For several points that can actually lead to the welfare of development of society as well as people. Many good things were taken, as the framers of our Constitution were really inspired by that. Starting from, they were inspired by the social justice that was included, then they were inspired by the economic welfare, then foreign policy was there, and last but not the least, legal and administrative matters were also there, which inspired the framers to include these things under the Dpsp, that is Directive Principles of State Policy. So with this I will wind up today's topic, and I hope that whatever the points we have read today, it is now clear to you. With that I will wind up here only. Thank you.